The suicide of Fernand de Beaumont left his widow Vera with a daughter of 6, Elizabeth, who had never seen her father, kept far from Paris by his Cantabrian excavations, nor had she seen much more of her mother, who had pursued her career as a singer in the Old World, and in the New practically uninterrupted by her brief marriage to the archaeologist. Born in Russia at the turn of the century, Vera Orlova, that is the name by which music lovers still know her, fled in the spring of 1918 and settled first in Vienna, where she was Schoenberg's pupil at the Verein für Musikalische Privatausführung. She followed Schoenberg to Amsterdam, but their ways parted when he returned to Berlin, and she came to Paris to give a series of recitals at the Salle Erard. Despite the sometimes sarcastic and sometimes tempestuous hostility of audiences clearly unfamiliar with the techniques of Sprechgesang, then supported only by a small band of aficionados, she managed to insert into her programs, mostly composed of operatic arias, Lieder by Schumann and Hugo Wolf, and songs by Mussorgsky, some of the vocal pieces of the Vienna school, which she thus introduced to Parisians. It was at a reception given by Count Orphanik, at whose request she had come to sing Angelica's last aria in Arconadi's Orlando, that she met the man who would become her husband. But she was in demand everywhere, more and more insistently, and was dragged off on triumphant tours, which sometimes lasted a full year, and hardly lived at all with Ferdinand de Beaumont, who, for his part, only ever left his study in order to check his speculative hypotheses in the field. Born in 1929, Elizabeth was therefore brought up by her paternal grandmother, the old Countess de Beaumont, and saw her mother for scarcely a few weeks each year, when the singer consented to resist her impresario's ever-increasing demands and came to take a rest at the Beaumont Castle in Ledignan. It was only toward the end of the war, when Elizabeth had just turned 15, that her mother, who had now given up concerts and touring to devote herself to teaching singing, brought her to Paris to live with her. But the girl soon rejected the guardianship of a woman who, when deprived of glitter of boxes and gala performances, of the bunches of roses thrown at the end of her recitals, turned shrewish and domineering. She ran away 1 year later. Her mother would never see her again, and all the inquiries she made to track her down came to naught. It was only in September 1959 that Vera Orlova learnt, at the same time, that her daughter's life had been, and how she died. Elizabeth had married a Belgian bricklayer, Francois Bridal, 2 years earlier. They lived in the Ardennes at Chaumont-Porcine. They had 2 little girls, Anne, who was 1 year old, and Beatrice, who was a newborn baby. On Monday, 14 September, a neighbor, hearing crying in the house, tried to break in. Unable to do so, she went to fetch the gamekeeper. They shouted, but only reply they could get was ever more strident crying of the babies. Then, with the help of some other villagers, they broke down the back door and rushed to the parents' bedroom, where they found them, lying naked in bed, their throats slit, swimming in blood. Vera de Beaumont heard the news that same evening. Her wailing scream echoed through the whole building. Next morning, after being driven through the night by Bartlebooth's chauffeur Kleber, who, when he was told of the business by the concierge, spontaneously offered his services, she arrived at Chaumont-Porcine and left almost straight away with the 2 children.